What's up, guys? I got a brand new video for you today. Happy New Year. I know it's already a couple weeks into the new year, but I want to bring you guys a new video, and it's going to be a tutorial video, something that you guys ask me to do all the time. And as much as I'd love to, I don't really like doing them because I have my own way of doing things and other people have their own way of doing things. And sometimes in the comment section, it gets heated because you don't like the way I do things. So I've tried to stay away from making tutorial videos, but I don't even care. New year, new me. New place. I'm in a different place right now. I moved and I'm still trying to set it up, but let's get into this tutorial. I'm going to be using Photoshop. Some people like using Lightroom. Some people don't like using Adobe at all because they don't like their business practices, but I'm going to be using Photoshop for this because that's what I mostly use to edit my photos and manipulate photos. And this image actually comes from a friend of mine on Instagram. His name's Timo, and he is actually a really good photographer. We talk a lot. But he shot this image in JPEG and forgot to turn the camera to RAW. This is a good reason why you should shoot with RAW. Basically, this image is overexposed on the face where the sun's hitting. It's an awesome shot. Like, I love the composition, I love the lighting, I love the model's look, I even love what the model's wearing. But there's no denying that when you shoot JPEG, you don't have that dynamic range, and if you overexpose, there's not much you can do. And he was kind of mad. He's like, I really love this shot, but I feel like it's ruined because I can't fix it. And I was like, well, do some of these things in Photoshop and you'll be able to fix it. Well, he's not really all that used to working in Photoshop and he's a little bit intimidated by it. So I was like, okay, well, let me make like a tutorial video out of this. He let me have this image to work on as well as the model for allowing me to use this as well. And we're gonna go in here and we're gonna fix some highlights. And this is how you would touch up overexposed highlights with a JPEG. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna duplicate this layer. And the main reason why you'd wanna duplicate the image is so that we, first of all, can toggle back and forth between where we started and where we're at as we're editing it, as well as we're making most of our changes to that layer. In case we mess up, we can always go back and duplicate the old layer again. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in here and we're gonna take a look at the affected area here. Obviously this area is not savable, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go up to filter and we're gonna go to camera raw filter. And yeah, we're working with JPEGs, but we can still affect, you know, the highlights and shadows a little bit from the JPEG. And this is the way I like to do it. So I'm going to the highlights here and I'm gonna pull them back. I'm gonna actually zoom in here. I'm gonna pull the highlights back. As you can see, it starts getting a little bit discolored. It starts going a little bit orange, and that's just because, like I said, the JPEG doesn't have that same dynamic range that a RAW file has. If you shot this in RAW, you'd probably be able to pull that all back and get the skin that's underneath it. That sounds weird. So I'm gonna stop there with the highlights and I'm gonna bring the exposure down just a little bit. We're gonna go okay. Then we're gonna make a new layer. I'm gonna zoom in even closer here. I'm gonna grab the selection tool. I'm gonna grab some kind of skin tone like this, and basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna paint over top of the highlighted area, bring that down a little bit so it kind of warms up that area, and then we're gonna add grain back to it after. So I'm gonna go to the paintbrush tool. I kind of like this size, so I'm just gonna basically paint over top of this. I'm gonna leave the highlighted area just above her eye, and I'm gonna leave it like that. This new place has a lot of trains. This happens like every 30 minutes. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change that blend mode to multiply, and I'm gonna bring the opacity back. Something like that. We're gonna go back to that layer, and we're gonna take the clone tool, and I'm gonna kind of just smooth out the skin in that area. I'm gonna try and pull some of the color from other areas into the highlighted area. So with the option key, you can select kind of the darker skin area and just kind of pull it in. You could also do something like frequency separation for something like this, but I'm not gonna do that because we're working with mostly just highlighted areas versus rough skin. Her skin's actually really good, and that's looking really good. It's a lot more smoothed out, no more highlights blown anymore. And if I was to put these into a group and toggle back and forth, you can see the difference. So that's before, this is after. And the way I'm looking at it right now, her face looks a little bit too orange, so the areas that I painted in, I could actually bring the opacity down even more. Something like that. That looks a lot better. So next what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna straighten those lines out because they're a little bit crooked. And because I'm super picky, that's something that needs to get fixed. So I'm gonna merge these layers because I'm happy with how that looks. I'm gonna cut this out. And I'm gonna put some guides in here. We're gonna look at these lines here. I'm gonna go to edit, transform, rotate. Something like that's pretty good. I'm gonna scale this up. Some people will crop. I'm not gonna crop, I'm just gonna scale it back up to the original size it was. And I'm not really liking the sliver of light right here. So, you know what, I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna put a guide right here because that looks pretty straight. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the warp tool and just kind of pull this edge out a bit. That looks really good. Now there's a couple more things I like to do to my images to finish them. We could leave it at this stage, but I like to add gradient maps. So we'll go down here. We're gonna go to gradient map. I'm gonna change the color of this to black and orange. I'm gonna change this to an orange color. A lot of people on my Instagram will message me and ask how I got to kind of have that warm tone, and this is how I actually do it. So I'm gonna change this to linear burn, and the opacity, bring it way down. Something like that, about maybe 9%. Zoom out a bit. And then I also like to go in with the exposure adjustment and change the offset to about 80. And then the gamma correction we can pull down. This just kind of really makes those shadows punchy. And I really like how that looks. So I'm going to, again, put this in a group and I'm gonna toggle back and forth. That's the old image, and this is the edited image. Just gives it a lot smoother look to it, and you could maybe even go in and dial in the cheeks a little more, add some more highlights to pop. You could even add more noise to it. You could make it black and white. Black and white saves a lot of images actually. That is basically all I want to do on this image. It's looking really good. Again, if we toggle back and forth, there's the original to the edited image. It's looking pretty good. And I mean, if I spent more time on it, I could make it look even better, but for the tutorial, that's where I'm gonna leave it at. And yeah, stay tuned for more content. It's 2019. New place. I got some vlogs coming. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down twice. I'll see you in the next one.